Yo, people and patrons of the night. It is your boy, BD, and we are in fact out here during the night on my front porch. And I'm going to be talking about a book that is very reminiscent to scary stories to tell in the dark. And because of that, I thought it would be very good for me to then do the setting of this video from outside in the dark. Of course, my porch light is on, but you can't see ahead of me. I don't want to dox myself, but it's very dark outside. It's quiet Sunday night. I'm out on the street. There is headlights. It's quite creepy. In fact, I just had a dude start whispering to himself and talking about the Cowboys as he walked by my house. So this is quite the Wild West setting. And of course, it's fitting because when you're talking about a book that kind of embodies a scary stories to tell in the dark ripoff, that deals with urban legend, that deals with stories that creep you out, that scare you, that disturb you, and as you can see from the thumbnail, has some fantastic artwork that very much can rival something like Stephen Gamel's horrifying art. This is the perfect location to do so. So please make sure to grab a seat, to take a drink, and enjoy yourself as we dive into the Horror Tavern and talk about some obscure, scary stories from a book collection called Nightmare Soup Tales to Turn Your Stomach. Now, this is, I think, a solely online ebook out there. It's stories written by a guy that I think is named James or Jacob Tree. Sorry if I got that wrong. I forgot your name after I read the first page. And I think the artwork in this book is by a guy named Andy Sciacchio. I don't know. Listen, if I butcher your names, I'm sorry. I'm not very good with names. But your short story collection is quite fun and quite good. This short story collection is very reminiscent to Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. The artwork by Andy Sciacchio, it's very close to Stephen Gamel. It is horrifying. Some of that artwork you're going to see on my thumbnail, it's disturbing, it's dark, it's done in that sort of sketch bleeding into the page sort of artwork. And it's very unique and very well done. So honestly, for all the Scary Story ripoffs that there's been in terms of books, this one has probably the best artwork out of all of them. And although this is not a great book by any means, I think the stories are quite effective. If you're a fan of Alvin Schwartz's work, you're gonna like this because there's a lot of good urban legend stories in here. There's a lot of quite scary and to the point punchline kind of stories. And there's even some unique concepts thrown in here that even though they don't feel like scary stories to tell in the dark, as a standalone, I think they're quite good. And there's actually one story in here that I think should just turn into a full blown out novel because I think it would be a great idea. Make it into a novella, make it into a novel. I would pay money to see this either as that or adapted into an episode or adapted into a movie. Please, if that happens, I would be a happy man. But without further ado, let's start talking about Nightmare Soup Tales, the first book. Now, I'm just going to be briefly discussing some of the stories that stuck out to me as very good. There's, I think, 30 scary short stories in here if you get the digital add-on bonus ones, which I do have. So I'm only going to be talking about like 6 or 7 ones that really stuck out to me that I think are really good and give you kind of a good idea as to the type of stories you're going to get within this pretty much obscure book. So the first story I want to talk about is actually the very first story in the book, and this one very much feels like a Alvin Schwartz urban legend, scary stories to tell in the dark kind of tale, and it is called I Hate Clowns. Now, I Hate Clowns is about this kid who's going to his best friend's birthday party. Sorry about the noise, by the way, cars pass by all the time, so if that's a little bit loud, apologies for that. But adds to the ambiance. This book, this story, I Hate Clowns, is about a kid who is going to his best friend's birthday party. And as he's going to his best friend's birthday party, he decides he doesn't want to go. And his mom immediately asks, well, son, why don't you want to go? This is your best friend. You should attend his birthday party. And he says, I don't want to go because there's a clown that's going to be there. And as the title says, this guy hates clowns. He has a phobia of clowns. They terrify him. And what ends up happening is that due to some pressure by his mom, he ends up going to his best friend's birthday party. But he decides he's going to get some revenge and prank the clown. So he's actually going to get a little bit of comeuppance against this figure. And what he's going to do is he's going to go into the clown's little bag of party tricks and bag of party items, and he's going to steal his red nose. So that way, when the clown goes to perform at the kid's birthday party, he's going to be missing his nose. He's going to freak out. He won't be able to deliver a good performance. And he does so. He manages to successfully take away the red nose of the clown and brings it back home with him. However, there's a problem. And that is the fact that one night, as he's essentially sleeping in bed, he looks out his window after he hears some strange noises. I think it was like some type of like honking noise, like from a clown horn, or squeaky shoes or something. And as he looks out the window, he sees a sight that is quite horrifying. In fact, that sight is very similar to a sight that's in front of me right now, because there is a street lamp out there, just like, I guess like 20, 30 feet away from me. So this is quite horrifying. I did not think this through. I got pepper spray. I got some weaponry here in case some skin crawlers or clowns try to pull up on me. But he sees outside his window a basically street lamp, and there's a clown standing under there. And he realizes that this is actually the same clown, probably from the birthday party. And he's very terrified because he realized that this clown may have come back to get the piece of entertainment equipment that was stolen from him, his red nose. And the ending to that story is a well done punchline. It is disgusting. It is horrifying. It is so effective. And if I read this as a kid, I would have shit myself. It is such a great ending to that story. Again, it's nothing extraordinary. You can maybe sort of predict what the ending is, but again, it's well done. It's to the point. A nice punchline, very much in vain to what Alvin Schwartz oftentimes does with his stories. Another short story in this collection that I think is quite well done, and again, fits that urban legend feel and fits an urban legend that personally terrifies me, is called Imaginary Friend. Imaginary Friend is about this boy who, as the title basically entails, has an imaginary friend. His mother is very much sick of this imaginary friend. He's always talking to this imaginary friend in his room, plays soccer with him, plays games with him, and they end up breaking items in the house. And of course, he blames his imaginary friend. He calls him Charlie. He says Charlie's the one who's responsible. Charlie's the one who was playing soccer inside the house and broke a vase. It wasn't him. His mom thinks it's very childish. He needs to grow out of it. And says, you know what, don't blame your imaginary friend for everything. I know you're the one causing these antics. I know you're the one causing these pranks. So you need to grow out of this imaginary friend phase. And one day, as she's home alone, she hears, her son talking to this guy named Charlie, imaginary friend. And I think one day, her son is not in the house, and she decides to clean out his room. And as she's cleaning out her son's room, she hears a noise in the closet. And as she goes into the closet after hearing the noise, she sees this dark, cutout opening hole inside of the closet. And there's a piece of cardboard that is barricaded up against that opening in the closet wall, right? This square dark hole cut into the drywall of the closet. There's a piece of cardboard closing it up. And I have a primal fear of entities being in my house when I don't know they're in my house. People hiding in my house, whether it be supernatural, whether it be whatever it may be, or whether it be a real person. That is a primordial fear of mine that in urban legends very much works for me. It terrifies me. And this sort of plays on that. And what she finds in that little cut in the drywall of this closet is horrifying. It is disturbing. It is scary. I nearly shat my pants reading that. If I was a kid and I read that short story, I would not be able to sleep for the next few days, specifically because in my room I have a closet, and specifically I have a crawl space in my closet that luckily is covered up by some boxes right now full of a bunch of items. But if I was a kid with my room and that crawl space inside of the closet, I would have not been able to sleep for like the next week. So this is quite a well done short story, to the point, maybe predictable, but it's not as predictable as you think. What she finds in that closet is genuinely scary, and it will make you shit yourself, and it will maybe make your heart skip a beat if you're as imaginative as I So that is imaginary friend. Um, Another short story in this collection that stuck out to me is called Feeding Time, and this one I'm actually going to spoil because the imagery in this short story is so scary that I think I just have to spoil it for you. So just fair warning, if you are afraid of me spoiling one of the stories out of these 30 short scary stories from this collection, then fair warning, I'll throw up a peace sign saying I'm going to spoil. Feeding Time is about this guy who is basically lonely. He wants to go on some dates, and he ends up going on a date with this girl. And as he's going on a date with this girl, they go into like a drive-in theater. They go have a good time with each other. She's very adamant on her getting back home before 11:30 p.m. And he's not sure why she needs to get home. You know, she's in high school. He kind of suspects, okay, she has a curfew. That's understandable. But she is deadly persistent on getting back home before 11:30 p.m. And as the story goes on, he hears her stomach rumbling, and she's very hungry, it seems. He offers her food, but she says, no, we don't need to go eat out. You know, we might end up staying longer than we have to. And she, needs to get home by 11:30 p.m., before midnight. And as they're in the car ride, eventually his car breaks down. I think he runs out of gas, and her stomach keeps rumbling and rumbling and rumbling. He tries to get help. He tries to call and see if he can fix the car. Her stomach keeps rumbling. And what happens to her and what happens to him is fucking horrifying. So I'm gonna throw up the peace sign. Essentially, it's described that once it starts hitting this 11:30 mark, when it's like 5 minutes away from 11:30, it's described that her spine arches abnormally, and her neck stretches out, and her eyes roll into her head, and she basically extends her limbs and pushes her body and just hangs off of these limbs. Like, she puts her legs up and just hangs off of her arms and starts crab crawling towards the guy. And as she starts contorting her body, her stomach splits open into dozens of rows of hundreds of jagged, sharp teeth. Her stomach basically opens up into this giant cavern of hundreds of razor-sharp teeth. And she starts mauling him and biting off his legs and ripping him apart and drags him back into the car. And when that scene ends, the ending to the story basically says, "This is why I told you that I need to get home by 11:30. I hate going on dates." Spoiler done. That is a really well done short story. I absolutely love that concept of getting home before a curfew. Her transformation scene is fucking horrifying, fucking scary, and it is so well done. So that's another standout one. There's another short story in this collection called Tongue. Now, this is basically a short story that plays off of a running gag. Now, apparently, I have read the 3 Nightmare Soup stories. There's 3 books. There's 3 Nightmare Soup books. Sorry if I'm stuttering this video, but I've been working all day. Very tired. I'm off a Red Bull. And I'm a little bit nervous being outside here, to be honest with you, especially when reading out these, recalling these horrifying tales. But basically, this short story is about these 2 kids named Logan and Drew and their biology teacher named Mr. Anderson. Now, these are some reoccurring kids and a reoccurring teacher that appears in short stories across all 3 books. And essentially, it's like a running gag that these 2 kids are always talking to their biology teacher, and their biology teacher is always telling them about these horrifying nightmares of nature, these natural parasites, these natural creatures that Mother Nature has constructed, and they are straight up nightmare fuel. There's one story in here about a botfly. Disgusting, really nasty. It is some nasty body horror. It'll make your skin crawl. But there's a second story in here. That's the one I want to talk about, and it's called Tongue. That's right, Tongue. It's about louses. Now, if you don't know what a louse is, I'm going to briefly describe it to you. A louse is essentially this crustacean cockroach of the ocean. It's like a crab mixed with a cockroach. It's a parasite in the ocean. And this thing is fucking horrifying, y'all. This thing is disturbing as all fucking shit. A louse is essentially this little crustacean parasite in the ocean. You find them in waters. And essentially it targets fish. And how it targets fish? It essentially will crawl into a fish's mouth, eat away the fish's tongue, Yes, it eats the fish's tongue, and it'll lay there in its mouth. And that way, when it latches on, every time the fish eats something, the louse will start eating that food. And it's a problem because then the fish won't be able to gain weight, get natural nutrients, because this thing is going to be eating away like half of the food. So yeah, that is what it does. It eats the fish's tongue and then starts feeding off of food, basically as long as it latches on there in the mouth. So as soon as a fish opens its mouth, fish are disgusting enough. When the fish opens its mouth, sometimes you're going to see this little black beady-eyed crab cockroach just laying there in the mouth, eating away its tongue. Horrifying stuff. So the biology teacher, Mr. Anderson, tells these two boys about it, and essentially they go on a fishing trip at a local lake, and it's summertime. There's some gnats flying around him, and one of these gnats flies into one of the boys' mouth, and he has to basically get it out of his mouth, and he curses at it, and he decides, I'm just gonna grab a handful of water from the lake and then rinse it out. His friend says, ew, that's disgusting, don't grab water from the lake. He does it anyway, and as he does it, something tragic happens to him. And if you heard my description of the creature, the louse, that is essentially playing into the ending of the story. And it is disturbing. It made my skin crawl. It horrified me. That is a very crazy ending to that story. So that is Tongue. And another short story in here. There's two more that I want to talk about before I wrap up this video. Another short story in here is called, I forgot the name of it, but I think it might have been called Pumpkin or Witches. Essentially, it's a story that takes place on Halloween, and this story during Halloween involves some boys who are like rebels. They cause a lot of mischief in the area. They're kind of pranksters, and they dare each other all the time. A lot of crazy stuff. And what ends up happening is that as they're out on Halloween night, there is this local house in the neighborhood that essentially may belong to a witch. And this house is said to be haunted. It's, again, housed by a witch, so there's a lot of urban legends surrounding around it. And this house is said to be extra terrifying because of the fact that this woman, this witch woman, essentially carves out hundreds of realistic looking pumpkins and lines them against her house. And one day, one of these kids, the rebellious one, decides to go there and blow up her pumpkins with some firecrackers. And her friends basically, his friends, my bad, warn him and say, don't do it. It might end badly for you. You don't know if those urban legends are true or not. We've heard some disturbing things about kids going missing around her house that pranked her. And he decides to do it anyway. And shocker, he ends up going missing on Halloween night. And when the police investigate his friends to see what may have happened, they decide to go investigate. And what they find out is disturbing. I've said disturbing probably 80 times throughout the story. The ending to this Halloween story is horrifying. If you have a good imagination and you imagine seeing this on Halloween night, you would freak out. It is iconic the way the story ends. It is scary as all balls, but it's so effective. That is another standout one in the story. I forgot the name of it, but it's the Halloween story. And finally, the last story I want to talk about from the Nightmare Soups Book 1 that I think is quite good is called The Pyre. The Pyre is my favorite thing I've read out of the book. It might be one of my favorite short stories that I've read in a while. And again, it's another urban legend one, but it's a completely fantasized, fictionized one. It is a story that basically talks about different fire events around the world. Wildfires, infernos, spontaneous combustions, any form of event that involves a fire, pyromaniac stuff. Okay, I lied. There's two more stories I want to talk about. I just got reminded of another one. But this one is my favorite story. The Pyre is about, again, talking about all these different events involving wildfires, house fires, infernos, spontaneous combustions. And it describes that there's this demon, this entity, this monster that is the source of all of these fires that happen around the world. And it's described as the Pyre. Now, the Pyre is described as this very tall, 8 foot, 9 foot tall, lanky, skinny, all black shadow man that has charred skin to the point that it's like opaque black. And he has no eyes, he has no ears, he has no nose. He just has a giant grin of bright white pearly teeth, this Joker smile of bright white pearly teeth. Again, no eyes, no features, just a very tall, lanky man. And this entity, this demon or whatever it is described to watch people burn in fires. Yes, this entity, this long, black, tall man, this black man, shadow man with a giant grin of teeth, just watches you burn in wildfires and pyro events. And he basically waits for you to burn away in the fires, and then he will spider crawl towards you and start eating your burnt up flesh and corpse. Yes, this is a monster, a demon, a all black demonic entity that basically is responsible for all these fire events, watches you burn sinisterly, gets glee off of it, laughs at it, and then crawls up and starts eating you. And it's described that when firefighters come to your rescue, this entity is always there lingering. People don't know about it, but that whenever you now think about fires, you should think about that entity. That story concept is so unique and so well done. I want that turned into a novel. I want that turned into a full-length book. I think it would be great. I think it would be such a great novel to make it. Either make a novelette, make a novella, make a book out of it. That story idea needs to be turned into something, some form of extended media, because it's such a good idea. It is such a scary, horrifying idea. It's so cool, so badass. I want that turned into something. So if anybody out there with executive power is listening, turn the pyre from Nightmare Soup Tales into something fleshed out, all right? We all need to see that. And the last story I want to talk, before I wrap up this video, is a straight up urban legend story that arguably I think is one of my favorite. I think it might be one of my favorites, even though it's so simple, it's one of my favorites. It's called Drip Drip. This is an urban legend story about these kids who go to a movie theater late at night to watch a late night running of a horror movie, and it's a slasher film. And as they're in the movie theater, there's a very shady, suspicious looking guy who sits down in a couple rows behind him, and he starts laughing aggressively. He starts laughing maniacally at all the different killer scenes going on in the movie, all the different deaths, all the different kill scenes by the slasher. He laughs maniacally. He starts pointing at it and saying all these crazy things. He's just super ecstatic about it, and they, very logically start getting creeped out by that guy. And as they leave the movie theater to go inform an employee about this guy, the employee and them go back to the theater so they can point out this guy to the employee. And when they get back into that dark movie theater, they see something. And it is so effective. It is one of the best punchlines to a urban legend short story that I've read. And that's one of my favorite urban legends I've read. I don't know if it's inspired off of a real urban legend. I assume it may be. But dude, I love that one. Drip Drip is such a great urban legend story. To the point, straight, simple, but it's so effective. And honestly, I can see that being an actual urban legend out there that a lot of people probably know. Maybe I'm out of the loop, but I love Drip Drip. That's another one that I think you should read because it's, again, to the point, simple, effective. Is it anywhere near as creative and disturbing and dark as something like The Pyre? No, but it's effective in its own way, and I think that it works really well. So that's all I have for Nightmare Soup Tales. Again, different setting to the video. I decided to make it more, ambiance and ominous because, again, I don't know. I just felt it would be a nice setting change for this kind of book. Again, scary stories to tell around the campfire in the dark kind of thing. Please go check out Nightmare Soup Tales. The book is quite pricey. It's like $20. Yeah, it's not worth that much money. If you could find a way to read it for cheaper or something, please go do so. But again, I think it's a fun read. I think if you're a fan of Alvin Schwartz, of Stephen Goodell, of scary stories to tell in the dark, this is one you should check out. And I would give it an 8 out of 10. I think this is a good read. I've read the later ones of Nightmare Soup Tales, and I've read some of the other spin-offs, like I think Nightmare Society by these guys. I didn't like them quite as much. I don't think the quality was as consistent, but the first book, it's an 8 out of 10. I recommend you go check it out. I think you'll have a fun time, and yeah, that's all I have for today. If you guys enjoyed this, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that like button. We're almost at 300 subscribers. If we manage to hit that, I would be so thankful and happy. Please go make it happen. And again, share the video around. Check out some of my other videos on the channel if you like it. And that's all I have for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. We didn't get ambushed by any skinwalkers, so I think we're pretty good. And yeah. Thank you so much for checking out this video. You guys are the best, and I love each and every single one of you. Did you guys hear that? Hey, what the hell is that in the dark over there?